And a good spiritual morning to you. Christ is risen. Christos Anesti. I'm Father Cosmas. Thank you for joining me from my prayer corner at home for a morning chat and a cup of coffee. And so I thought for today, again, because we're trying to survive this lockdown that we're in now going on, I don't know, it feels like 9 months, maybe 2 or 3. And I noticed that a lot of people are struggling with their scheduling of things. And as part of that, we've talked about, how we work and how we eat. We haven't talked about how we sleep. So I thought today we'd spend just a couple minutes talking about our sleep habits, because that's something that we don't think about too much, but it is incredibly important and something that we have to be aware of because it affects, our sleep hours affect our waking hours and our level of productivity and happiness when we are awake. You'll notice that if you're not sleeping well, you find yourself just sort of dragging through the day. And if you're not sleeping well for a period of time, then you find yourself dragging through weeks and then months. So I thought I would talk a little bit about how we sleep. Because again, our schedules are off. And maybe we've now gotten into a new schedule. We're not probably going to work like we were used to or going to school. We don't have to get up as early as we used to, because you don't have to get ready and you don't have to travel and do all of those things. So you have people sort of rolling out of bed and getting right on their Zoom conference or grabbing that cup of coffee and, sort of stammering to their computer and just starting to work. So we're staying up a lot later, sleeping later, maybe not getting as much sleep as we should, something to be careful about. So again, by way of general comments, to get the right amount of sleep, 4 hours, 5 hours is generally not enough for optimum functioning. Don't think to yourself, well, I don't have to get up and go to work or school. I have to go anywhere, so I don't have to go to sleep early. I can stay up later. Probably not a great idea, because again, what you're going to find yourself is still having to wake up at some point, and you've gone to sleep later, so now you're only getting 5 or 6 hours of sleep, as opposed to the good 7 or 8 hours that we need for optimum functioning. So that's one pitfall, that we're not getting enough sleep. Make sure you go to bed early enough so that you're getting enough sleep, because we should be getting up as early as we can. Generally, the earlier you get up, still, even though you don't have to go out, the better it is. The other, end of the spectrum is people oversleeping. We might not be as happy as we could be right now. There are a lot of people fighting despondency and depression, as we've talked about. And one of the main keys of depression is, you get your sleep. So there are people probably just trying to sleep the day away, 10, 11, 12 hours or beyond. They're just staying in bed. Also, probably not the healthiest thing to do. Of course, if you're ill and you need to be in bed, stay in bed. If you're just sleeping in and rolling over and hitting the snooze and rolling over and you find yourself in bed for 10 hours a night, there might be something wrong. Again, set a schedule. Even though you don't have to go anywhere, set your alarm. Try to get up at a reasonable time. Try to get a reasonable amount of sleep. And the last thing I would say is, from a spiritual point of view, when we're getting to a higher spiritual level, sleep is one of the things that we do try to control. So you see that in the lives of the spiritual fathers or the mothers of the church, and you see it now in the monasteries, where they have a very strict control of their schedule and especially their sleep. They don't typically sleep 8 hours. They break up their sleep almost into 2 naps, almost. Because again, they get up for vigil, for Agrippnias, and they wake up sort of in the middle of the night so they can pray, and then they take a little nap in the morning, and then they take a nap again later in the evening to get up again. So they might only be getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep a day, maybe 2 hours here and 3 hours there. It's one of the things that they are controlling, and it's part of their fast. It's part of what they're giving up. And that's something that's an amazing thing. If you've been able to wake up and keep a vigil, wake up in the middle of the night and say your prayers, it's an amazing thing. Most people are not at that point. We just try to be able to not oversleep or make sure that we're not getting enough sleep, to make sure that we're doing it in correct proportions to be healthy. A general rule: do everything that you need to do to function and to be healthy. That applies to the fasting guidelines, and it applies to how we're sleeping. So just some things to think about. Make sure you're getting enough sleep, make sure you're not sleeping too much, and make sure you're setting a schedule for yourself, that you're still trying to get up at a normal hour. Because guess what? At some point, we're going to have to get back to reality, right? We're all going to go back to work. We're going to go back to school. At some point, we're going to have to start getting up again at 5 and 6 o'clock to be able to make that morning commute, get ourselves ready and get out and go to work. And then we're going to be dragging for those 2 or 3 weeks that we have to make that transition. Always a good idea to keep a good routine. Get up nice and early, and that's a wonderful time. People say, well, Father, what do I do? If I wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning, I don't have to be on my first conference call or start working until 9, and I don't have to travel. Well, maybe say your morning prayers. That's always a good thing to do when you first wake up. There's nothing better than greeting the sunrise with your morning prayers, or by reading the Bible for the morning. And the same thing with going to bed. We don't have to push yourself up till 1 or 2 in the morning just because you don't have to get up at 6. Go to bed at 10. Still, make sure you're getting your sleep so that you can function and that you can be healthy and happy through your waking hours. Once again, may our risen Lord and Savior bless us and keep us this day. Christ is risen.